I had to deal with him every day and do all this stuff. And there was like a to-do list that was getting longer and longer and longer. And he was suffering. When he died, when he finally passed, it was strange because I couldn't really express it at the time, but there was a strange sense of relief. Like this kind of joy that happened when he finally passed that you don't want to say because like, you're supposed to, you can't just be like, yes.
I'm Vanessa Grigoriadis, and this is My Parents Are Old. We're going to be talking to a comedian today. His name is Barry Rothbart. He's obviously very funny, and you may have seen him in The Wolf of Wall Street. He also has done a bunch of Comedy Central specials. He grew up in Queens. He had a dad that he loved, and one day he found out his dad worked for the mob. Classic. There were even a lot of wild moments where Barry found himself unexpectedly caught up in the family business, whether he wanted to be or not. But when Barry was in his early 20s, his dad got sick from cancer, and he had to step in. But instead of just caretaking, not that it ever is just caretaking, he basically had to clean up the wreckage of his father's entire life. I'm talking about legal stuff, money stuff, mob stuff. Just the usual father-son bonding. In a totally random turn of events, Barry even got a podcast out of it. It's called Searching for Allan Rothbart, and you can listen to it on Audible. We have a link in the show notes. So grab a drink, take a walk, or hide in your bathroom if that's where you get your peace these days. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm not going to bury the lead here. Barry, your dad was in the mafia. How did you find out about that?
He lied a lot about things, and he claimed that he was John Bon Jovi's manager. That was his primary lie about what he did for a living.
And so he would just be off, like, with Bon Jovi in Milwaukee?
Yes, and he would be like, I can get you tickets to Bon Jovi concerts, and then just never would. And then he got arrested at some point, and he finally told me everything when I was about 14 years old. And I started working with him and doing things that I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was picking things up, dropping things off, got involved in gambling stuff. And, this was, way before gambling was legal. So it was all kind of this clandestine, going to these weird offices. And it was the coolest thing I could have ever imagined as a
This
high
is in
schooler.
New York City, or where is this?
It was in New York, yeah. I grew up in Queens, but a lot of this was in Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. So you're taking the subway, like a teenager on the subway, just like very uncut gems, like running around to different like weird offices.
Yeah. I was just running around, and it was like The Sopranos was on the air. So it was like the coolest thing to be doing anything with the mafia. And I was just like, I had a girlfriend. I took her to Miami on my own dime when I was like 15. It was crazy.
So wait, what was your relationship with your dad like when you were doing this?
Oh, he's my hero. He was my best friend because, I was his only son. Mm-hmm. For better or worse, he was a friend, almost more than a parent.
Describe what he looked like and like what was his personality like?
He looked like Jerry Garcia.
Wow.
He was unkept. He was always overweight. He was gregarious and really fun and gentle and kind. And then he just had this other life that just didn't seem to add up to that. You know what I mean? Like, you have this vision of someone who like does illegal things and works for the mafia. Mm-hmm. And like, he just isn't that. He was this big Jewish guy who would never hurt anyone. There was no like tough guy bone in his body. He cried in movies all the time. We lived in this world where we were kind of, everything was exciting. He loved to make everything seem cinematic about our lives. And, I wasn't close with my mom for a long time. I mean, I lived with her, but we really butted heads. And he kind of played a part in turning me against her a little bit too, because, their divorce was so acrimonious. But my dad made these tapes when he was dying. And in the tapes, he reveals so much stuff. It was basically on his deathbed. And it was that he cheated on my mom constantly. It was all the illegal things he did, all these things. And my mom knew none of it. She didn't know he was cheating on her constantly, and she didn't know any of it. And I had to basically tell her that most of her life was kind of a fraud.
Oh my God.
She really did not take it well.
I mean, you have a crazy bit about your father taking you to Atlantic City for your birthday. Tell us what happened.
So, for my 18th birthday, he was like, let's go to Atlantic City. And he gave me and my friend some money when we got there to get a hooker. He was like, just go get a hooker. And then he walked away and went to his own room. And we were sharing a room, my best friend and I. And we immediately were like, how do you do that? We had no idea. So we went to the yellow pages, basically.
As you do.
And looked up hooker, and it didn't exist. There was nothing there. No. And prostitute wasn't there either. But then escort was like, maybe that's it. And we end up ordering it and then making the mistake of getting incredibly high, smoking a bunch of weed before, and just freaking out, both having panic attacks before he showed up. And we got so nervous because I was like, that's what people don't realize is like how nerve-wracking it is to have this stranger come to you and be like, hey, what are we gonna, we're gonna hang out? And we're like kids, we're 18 years old. And we, as soon as she got there, we just were like, we can't do this. We were, and we were so scared. We like hid when she knocked on the door. It was a nightmare. And then I went to my dad and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, she's here and we don't want to do anything with her. And he was like, don't worry, son, send her to my room. And
I'll take care of it. I always take care of everything. I got your back.
Yeah, he had our back.
So then you go to college, and then you hear that your dad is sick, but your relationship is still relatively good with him, right? Or like, how does that all happen?
Oh, it wasn't that I heard it. Like, I go to college for my girlfriend at the time, and it was a nightmare. And immediately, like, 9/11 happened. And that was when I decided I wanted to do comedy, just out of nowhere. And I was like, I'm going to move back to New York and do this, and I'm going to live with my dad.
Okay, so you're living with him, and he's getting sick.
Yes, because I did not want to live with my mom, and this is when things started to go downhill for my dad. He was getting more frail and sicker, and he didn't know why. And my dad hated doctors. He just never went to doctors.
Mine too. Yeah.
He just didn't have, to a fault. He was always just like, everything's going to be fine. Like, I don't want to think about anything negative. And he finally collapsed one day. He had diabetes too because he was overweight, but he collapsed at a bus stop in Queens, and he was just like taken to the hospital. And that's when they were like, you have stage 4 colon cancer.
Oh my God.
And, it kind of went downhill from there. But even before that, his health was deteriorating, and I basically was the only person in his life. So I was supporting him financially for years, and I was like, in college and trying to support him, and I had to get him an apartment and then another apartment. And, eventually when he got sicker, I had to like physically take care of him and try to get him like a nurse aide, which was a nightmare. But yeah, so I was very front and center with going downhill in his life. And first, I had to recreate him as a person because he didn't have a Social Security card. He hadn't paid taxes in like 30 years.
Oh,
so before I could get him on like SSI, which is like the Social Security or Medicaid or anything to help out, I had to be like, okay, well, they're asking for ID to do this. Okay, well, how do I get him an ID? And then it's like the ID person is like, hey, you need a birth certificate. And I'm like, oh, how do I get a birth certificate? So I had to like keep going down deeper into like, he is a person, he exists, he's on the grid. And eventually I did. I got him on SSI, and I got him on Medicaid, but it was kind of too late. Like, he'd already deteriorated too much. It was just, it was very stressful. It was a really stressful time, and also I was trying to start my own career, and, I had a girlfriend, and I was trying to start my own life. I was 20 something, but at the time you're just like, this is the next step. I got to keep going.
Did he have a will?
No.
Okay.
He had nothing. He was penniless.
He was penniless? Did you still have a will when you're penniless?
You know what? I don't think he would ever consider that he was going to die. He was just someone who never thought about that stuff or didn't want to. But there was like cell phone companies calling me a bunch after he died, being like he owed money. So he kind of gave me some of that, his debt, but I never, there was nothing to inherit. He was pretty much penniless at the end. He didn't have anything. So I don't even know what a will would have done.
Right.
Yeah.
My dad passed away of bone cancer, and my mom has Alzheimer's, and I'm her only daughter and, really her only family closer than Chicago. So,
sorry.
I have to take care of her. Yeah, it's been quite an experience. But the, the reversal of like father and son, mother and daughter is so extreme. Like, I think that's one thing people don't totally understand about this is basically you now have to parent. I always say it's like having like a young kid, except like not at all fun or like joyous.
There's only the negatives. Yeah, it's really, and that's what towards the end he became like a child. I had to because he would get mad out of nowhere. I'm sure you're dealing with this with Alzheimer's. It's like, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and when she gets mad out of nowhere, you don't take it personally, but it still kind of hurts. It's like, that they're kind of not a full person yet. Right. But it's kind of similar when your old parent does it, because you're like, you can't engage because what are you going to argue with this person who's going through this? Right. But it's just hard to it still kind of hurts, and you have to manage everything about them. So it's very draining, and you have to scold them when they don't take care of themselves the right way. Right. And it's that is very weird.
It really it does a number on your nervous system, because you're always also nervous. Like, something's going to happen. This person's going to fall. Like, when's the next shoe going to drop? Who knows? Like, there's like only one way you're going if you have Alzheimer's or stage 4 cancer, right? Like,
there's only one way we're all going. Sorry.
Well, that is also true. It does definitely make you realize that the black stallions are pulling the carriage with you in it down the hill, and the hill is really, really steep, and you're going down it, and who knows what it ends. And
it's hard. It's funny. When he died, when he finally passed, it was strange because I couldn't really express it at the time, but there was a strange sense of relief. Like this kind of joy that happened when he finally passed that you don't want to say, because you're supposed to, you can't just be like, yes. But it was like I don't know, everyone grieves in their own way, but I was so worried about what was going to happen with him next every day. Yeah. I had to deal with him every day and do all this stuff. And there was like a to-do list that was getting longer and longer and longer. And he was suffering. And when he finally passed, there was this, I don't know if you experienced this. I don't know what your story is with your father, but there was relief there, and I couldn't admit to that for a little while, but it was there, and it was part of it.
Yeah. I think I was more in shock, but I do think my mom, who took a lot of care of him because he died, before, was like briefly relieved, and then of course in massive grief.
Yeah.
So Your Parents Are Old. We'll be right back. You're listening to So Your Parents Are Old from Campside Media.
Tell me more about these tapes, because that is something, I have to say that I do regret not tape recording, some of my father's life. There's obviously tons of holes, tons of stuff I don't know. I think after somebody passes, you realize these voice messages that he sent, I'll never, get rid of these. And then maybe you change carriers and they're gone. Like things like that happen. But you somehow had the foresight to get him a tape recorder and tell him to record his life. Maybe because he had such an outrageous life that you wanted to actually know what was true.
Yeah, it was definitely started as selfish on my part. I was, I was in entertainment. I was in show business, and I was starting out, and I was like, there's something cinematic about his life. You know, maybe one day I'll make a movie about it. Or
this man
I'll
has
write
a story.
Yeah.
This could be a priceless story for me.
Exactly. I was like, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to make some money off of this guy.
I mean, if I have to pay his cell phone bill after he dies, I got to get paid back. Yeah.
So it started that way. And I was just like, you know, I'm going to give him. I didn't think he would do it, honestly, because he was in such a bad place. This was 2006, I want to say. So it wasn't like, you know, you're like, hey, record this on your phone. I literally handed him those little tape recorder tapes and a tape recorder that I bought at Radio Shack. And I was just like, here, you know, just record any memory you have, any story. And about like 6 months later, he was like, you know, by the way, I'm like 4 tapes in. And I've already like gotten halfway through my life. And I'm like, oh, you've been doing it? And he kept doing it up until he passed. He actually never finished. But because it's kind of eerie.
Where did he get to? Like age 40?
He got to kind of like 10 years before the current day. But it's kind of eerie. He left the last tape off being like, you know, on the next tape, I'm going to, I forget the exact words, but it was something like my plan to rise again. Like he had this plan of how he was going to get his life back on track. It was a strange way to leave off, but he did tell me at some point when he was making them, he was like, I'm just going to warn you, there's like a lot of kind of dark things that I'm going to put on there because I'm going to be honest with you. And there was, you know.
When did you listen to these?
So that's the thing, is like I couldn't listen to them for so many years, you know. And
what did you do with them? Do you have them in like a closet or
had them in my mom's basement in her apartment building. She has a storage room, and I kind of kept them there for a while because, like, when is the right time to just be like, I'm going to pop in my dead dad's tapes? You know, you're like, it's just one of those things. You're like, there's never a moment where you're just like, yeah, this is a great time to listen to those. And, you know, years just kept passing. And the more years that go by, the more of a big thing it is now, where it's like, when am I going to sit down and like do this? And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And I think what I realized when I finally did it was there's also an element of, you, like you said, you don't want to, this is the last word my dad's ever going to have. And you kind of don't want it to end, you know? Like me not listening to them means there's still more I could hear from him. And once it's done, I've heard every word he's ever going to say, you know? And I kind of didn't want to have that finality for a long time. But, you know.
So when did you listen to them?
Once I sold this show, you know, that sweet money was on the table. And
I mean, let's just be honest.
That sweet podcast money had come in. No, and yeah, I think that was when I finally wanted to sit down and I started investigating things, and I still put it off for a little bit. It's crazy. I actually lied to some people and was like, no, I've listened to them. They're insane. They're great.
Oh my God, and you hadn't done it. Did you sit and listen to all of them straight through? Like,
I did.
How did you do it?
I did. I had to stop a bunch. It was more difficult for me than I anticipated. As much, you know, you would anticipate that would be difficult, but it was like my hero was dying. That's like the best way I could put it. Because what I wanted were the stories to be so exciting and salacious. And, you know, like, it wasn't like him being like, and then I was, you know, embezzling money. And like, that would like bother me. You know, it was more the fact that he was kind of this really flawed person. And there was a lot of very odd sex stuff on there. And he was like
obsessed with every woman being in love with him and like how he impregnated everybody.
Yeah. And it was just, really it was dark. It was really dark. And it was dark in a way where I was like, this guy sounds like he's kind of full of shit. You know, like you have this feeling that you're still living in your childhood where your parents are infallible and they're big, larger than life, you know. So I was kind of stuck in this, like, he is a movie, you know, he isn't a human,
right? And
he sounded so flawed and human and just kind of narcissistic and kind of full of himself. And
how did that make you feel?
Terror. I felt strange. I felt like I didn't have like a you build an identity that's like a building, and then suddenly the first 4 floors just explode, and you're like, it just felt like I was just floating. Like I didn't know who I was. I just was very strange. Like I didn't realize how much of who I was built on this feeling about my dad. And, you realize it when it's gone.
Yeah. See, that's the thing about taping your father's life is that, like, if he's a flawed character, you may be surprised in ways that you didn't even expect to be surprised, right?
Completely.
And plus, you have to factor in that, like, this guy's on his deathbed and he's angry and he's afraid and he's trying to make you feel that he's bigger than he is somehow, right? Like, so he's posturing a lot and all this. Like, it could have been different if he had done it, before he got that diagnosis, right? Or no?
Yeah, I guess. I think what I started to realize over the course of like really looking into him was, I think in some ways this was like his inheritance to give me, because he wanted to kind of give me a story that was a little bit sexier and also a little bit like more cinematic, but it just, you could see through the BS sometimes, and you could see when someone's trying to embellish, and I could kind of feel that at times, and it kind of felt gross. But then, you start to realize that this person was dying, and they didn't have anything to leave, and, he was like, my only son is supporting me, and it must have been just so difficult for him to just be like, that's the reality of things. Like, he needed to live in this movie a little bit longer, I think.
So what was your relationship with him like by the time he died? Like, you personally?
He was just a burden.
You felt that he was a burden, yeah.
He just felt like a constant burden to me. And I felt sad for him, but I didn't want to address that in myself. I did feel like I was mad that he kind of left me with this pile of crap about, what he built his life into, where he didn't exist, and he never saved, and he never did anything. And I was like, that's what you left me after all this? But it also felt like he had done so much for me over the years too. So I kind of felt like I owed him a little bit. But yeah, I was very mad at how irresponsible he was. I think that's like, I try to live my life now, to a fault, to be incredibly responsible about things. Because I was like, I'm never going to leave my kids with that.
Yeah. Like, so what have you done? Like a will? Like, what are the things? You're like, no, I didn't do that yet. You got to do that.
I need to do a will.
Get on that.
It's like little things, right? There is this feeling, I'm sure everyone has had this, like when you go to an ATM and you're like, I don't want to see my account balance. I just don't want to feel bad about where I'm at. I want to live in a fantasy for another day. I've tried to really just be like, I'm going to be starkly realistic about my shortcomings, almost to a fault, about like what the dangers are with everything, where I'm at financially, what I'm doing. I'm not going to live in this fantasy world. And I'm also not going to just try to paint this rosy picture about who I am and what life is about to my daughter all the time, like he did.
Like, it's not going to be fun, like being in a video game.
I think that he kind of gave me some of the positive parts of that, which is like, I want to have fun with you, my daughter. I want to make things exciting, but I also don't want to be like, we are just friends. I'm not your parent, and I'm not going to just leave her with my crap. I just won't. I can't do that. I can't leave her with every mistake I've made for her to clean up, like he did to me.
So Your Parents Are Old. We'll be right back. You're listening to So Your Parents Are Old from Campside Media.
So, like, what kind of practical things do you wish you'd known before your dad died? Like, it's important to have a social security number, or like, I mean, is there any, it almost feels like there's no way you could have prepared for this, but is there anything that sticks out?
Don't steal people's identity.
Yeah.
Like, don't live. don't live under a pseudonym. I think I did learn the importance of actually building something long lasting. And I don't mean that like in an emotional sense. I mean that like literally building a career, like not just being like, what's going to make me the most money at this moment. I think I learned that, it really is important to think about your health, and not just like ignore that stuff and just feel like, it'll just kind of work itself out. Because there is that feeling sometimes of like, I got to go to the dentist and find out I have all these cavities. I just don't want to deal with that right now. I know it's a small example, but kind of was like, I need to monitor that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
He did teach me a lot, unexpectedly about how you get people identification and their birth certificates. And
so if you ever need to flee the country, So, you've obviously processed a lot of this, right? You talk about your dad a lot in your comedy. You're making this podcast. What stage do you feel you're at in terms of the processing?
I feel like I'm at a place where I don't need to tell myself any lies about him, if that makes sense. I don't need that anymore. I don't feel like I'm in a place where I'm completely over all the kind of bad lessons he might have taught me that I have to work through in therapy. Like what I was saying earlier, like this feeling that I need to live in a delusion. But also I'm able to be like, some of the negative things that he gave me also helped me. Like I wouldn't have had this career in this crazy business if I didn't have some sort of delusion. Like you need some level of like believing in something that doesn't feel realistic in order to have any success in this stuff. And I feel like I can see him as a more full person, but I also don't feel like I can say that I've completely worked through everything. Maybe I never will.
What advice would you give to someone with a parent like your dad, like emotionally?
I think it would be like, don't try to write one story or another about this person in your head. Try to see them as a full person, because it's easy to be like, they're all negative or they're all positive or they're all exciting or they're all boring or, and I just think it doesn't serve you to try to just tell yourself a story about something that important that isn't realistic, I dealt with this a lot towards the end too, where I was like, what was the value of knowing? I could have just easily kept going and never did any of this. Like I could have just been like, I don't want to look at any of this. And I probably wouldn't have. And I was like, was there a value in this? And I think you can't really grow as a person if you're telling yourself a false story about who you were and what your life was like. You're going to get stuck in it. And that story worked for me until it didn't. And I felt like, I wouldn't have grown as much as I have if I didn't learn the reality of everything.
Yeah, totally. That's like living in a world of illusion. But like, what do you say to your daughter about your dad? Like, do you tell her stories about him, or does she even know like anything?
She's really into the fact that he's dead. She is very into death.
She's 5.
Every time.
Yeah.
She's 5.
Oh, kids. They're so cute.
Every time I brought him up, she's like, is he dead? And I'm like, yeah, he's dead. She's like, wow.
Heavy.
Your dad's dead. She's very into death, but I've tried to be like, this is what he was like, and it's like, it's hard for her to fully grasp it, but I think about what I'm going to tell her when she's older. And I think I'm just going to tell her the truth, like that he was good sometimes and he was bad at other times, and he was exciting in this way and he was, not exciting in these other ways, and just, let her talk about it in therapy later. Let her figure it out.
Pass down some generational trauma right there. Yeah, makes sense.
But just as a side note, do your kids ever ask you about death? Because she's starting to ask me all the time. And I think I messed up.
What did you say?
Because I was like,
you go away and you're never, nobody ever knows you ever again. And
you're supposed to, that's what you're supposed to do. She asked me one time, she was like, Papa, she goes to me, Papa. And she was like, are you going to die one day? And I was just like, know, maybe. I don't know. I didn't know how to answer it. And then she goes, am I going to die one day? And I was just like, for some reason just went, no.
Of course.
I just told her, no, you're not going to die. And then I went home and Googled it. And apparently that's the worst thing to do.
Why, just make them narcissistic or something? Like, why?
No, it just, because then they're going to learn about it and they're going to be like, oh, I'm never going to die? Oh, okay. And then every time you learn about death, you're going to be like scared or something. But then I was in this strange place where now I had to like go up to her out of nowhere and just be like, hey, you're going to die one day, by the way. So that was like, yeah, she was like playing and I was like, hey, can we talk for a second? You're going to die. And you're supposed to be like, this is fine. Like once you die, that's it.
Oh my
gone.
God.
You're supposed to be like,
but there's religious people out there who believe in heaven. Isn't that nice? I mean, that is something you should be, I would think, telling your kids. But it's also true that kids really do have this like totally gruesome fascination with death where they're like, is that person dead, 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 dead?
Yes.
Like,
yes. No, yeah, our dog died and she just cannot stop talking about it. She brags to like his ashes are still like on our mantle. And she's just like, everyone who comes over, she's like, that's our dead dog right there.
It's a conversation piece.
Just give them a minute. Let them take their shoes off.
All right. Well, we should all be so lucky as to move on as easily as most children with death, although not your child, because she's going to be fucked up forever.
She loves it.
Thank you so much, Barry Rothbart, for being on My Parents Are Old. And everybody has to check out his podcast, Searching for Allan Rothbart, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Searching for Allan Rothbart on Audible, which is going to be amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me work through this stuff.
Barry's story really stayed with me. I never want my kids to have to recreate my identity. Okay, most of us will probably not go through that. But I think it's possible that you, like me, have searched for a Medicare card, have searched for a birth certificate, a Social Security card. The difference is you probably found that in your parents' apartment, and I have a feeling he did not. And he had to go through a AI phone tree nightmare to try to put it all back together. But I'm sure you, like me, do not want your kids getting saddled with creditors calling constantly, probably from China or whatever, when you're gone. And it is actually a big moment when you realize that. When you realize that you would rather your children be free of you in some ways, just to ease their burden a little. Because Barry's father's total lack of planning left him with a mess, not just logistically, but emotionally. Hearing Barry's story did make me do something I'd been putting off. I wrote down on a piece of paper that I need to add a beneficiary to my checking account. I'm talking about the one that's just got my name on it instead of my husband and my name. That's it. That was the big move. But it was a start. And it made me want to hear what others are doing or not doing to prepare. So we asked our listeners, and here's what you shared.
I just kind of copied my mom. She has like an accordion folder with little parts that say like kids, bank, finances, house. So I started a folder like that, but I haven't put anything in it yet.
I set up a transfer on death on my bank account last week. Felt like a total grown-up. Then I ate a whole sleeve of cookies to balance it out.
I saw a video online about how you should put things in a trust for your children, and I decided to do that, even though this trust will be kind of empty, to be honest, but I heard it saves my children on taxes, so that's how I'm helping them.
Well, many things. One of these is I lose some pounds to have better mobility when I get old. It's very important to have a good mobility to get to the bathroom, to not give you problems for my kids when I get old.
My mom refuses to talk about aging, so I sneak questions in during dinner. Hey, pass the potatoes. Also, where's your will?
I'm not preparing for them aging. That's for my older brother to worry about. Bobby's going to worry about it. I don't know where this stuff is. Bobby's going to worry about it.
Well, I brought a prepaid funeral plan so my kids don't have to worry. when I die. And now I'm preparing with exercise so I can walk without pain and be independent.
I don't know, but I hope my dad leaves me his record collection.
Thanks to everyone who shared these moments, which are awkward, funny, and certainly overdue. The reminders that preparation isn't about perfection. It's about presence, and it's about love. And it's maybe about getting a 3-ring binder. Not just with paper. I want you to get those laminated plastic sheet protectors that you can stick things into, and you can put your parents' will in there, all these different things that are many pages long. But you now, with your binder, feel very organized and like you can handle anything that comes your way. So talking to Barry and hearing your stories, it all reminded me we don't have to have it all figured out as much as we feel like we do. We can start just where we are. We can show up for our people. And being part of these conversations is a lot of what that looks like. So thank you for spending time with me today. If you like the show, please tell your siblings and your friends who are going through this too. And please hit the subscribe or the follow button in your podcast app. In Apple Podcasts, that's up at the top right of the podcast player. We will have an episode out every week, and if you want even more from us, including behind-the-scenes access and episode updates, head over to joinparents.com.